Hello, everyone. It is nice to see you all again here and being at the main track as well. It was a long day. Some of you are maybe a little bit tired, but I'm sure that you are also following what is happening. And we are proceeding with our final keynote for the whole event before we go to the official closing. And I must say that it is my great pleasure and my great honor that we are having Gabriela de Queiroz as a keynote. One of the things why we are very happy, because one of the key values of our conference is gender equality. And to be honest, I cannot think about too many person that I can say that they embedded this value as it is, because what I want to say that Gabriela is the founder of Our Ladies Movement, as myself as our user, not Python. I have a really big respect for you, your work, especially not only as IBM as a data scientist, but also somebody who realized why the things like this is also very, very important for our ecosystem. So I will not take any more of our time. I will just say that Gabriela will present to us data science as a team sport, and basically inside of it, she'll tell us about data science career, and because they're in high demand and with many job opportunities and attractive salaries, and as a relatively new career, it's very not well defined, and the job description of a data scientist can really vary from company to company. For these reasons, data science has attracted both new grade and career changers from all sorts of different fields. In her talk, Gabriela will walk you through her career journey as a different roles as data scientists can take, useful skills for a successful career, and lessons learned. So, Gabriela, like I said, once again, it's my honor to have you here, and I'm very glad that you're our official closing keynote for this event. So I'll leave the mic for you.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all. This time it's online, but hopefully one day we'll be able to get together again and I'll be able to meet you all. So today I want to talk a little bit about the data science career, the data science as a team sport. And the slides that I'm sharing today, they are available under this URL. So slides, materials, links, everything is going to be under it's a GitHub repo with a lot of good content. If you want to follow me on Twitter, this is my handle, and on this other URL there are a lot of good information, links, LinkedIn, Instagram account, and other things. So as my name is Gabriela de Queiroz, I work for IBM here in California as a machine learning manager. I have a team of open source developers, which I'm going to touch on later in this talk. I'm also founder of Our Ladies and AI Inclusive. I have a bachelor in statistics and 2 masters, one in epidemiology and one in statistics. So let me introduce first Our Ladies, because community is a big piece of who I am. It's part of my work. It's part of me as a data scientist. And Our Ladies was founded in 2012 as a way to give back to the community and also to create this place where people would feel comfortable, safe, and welcome. So it's a place where people could ask questions, learn together, and share without any judgment. And it's been 8 years since the first Our Ladies event here in California. The first event was an intro to R for beginners, and nowadays Our Ladies all over the world. So Our Ladies is a worldwide organization that promotes diversity in the art community via meetups, mentorship in a friendly and safe environment. So now we are pretty much everywhere in the world, in several cities. So it's more than 50 countries and more than 190 cities with more than 70,000 members. So if you don't know about Our Ladies, I would recommend you to check our website out. And if you want to be part of the community, join one of the local chapters. Last year, I moved from Our Ladies. Our Ladies has been doing a great job. The team behind has been doing an awesome job. And I decided to focus on things that needed my attention, that I felt that I need to shift gears a little bit and focus on more artificial intelligence. And the AI Inclusive came together as an idea, kind of thinking where I needed to do something around the whole AI, the whole discrimination around AI, bias and ethics. I was seeing a lot of news in the US and China around facial recognition and how those algorithms are affecting people's life. And the majority of the people, the people that are going to be affected the most are the minority group. So I felt this urge to do something around with the community. So the AI Inclusive Organization, our mission is to increase the representation and participation of minority groups in AI. So we are building this community to make AI more inclusive to everyone. We first talk about the issues around AI, the bias and discrimination. So we get everybody together to learn about the issues, and then the second piece is around educating and empowering this community to get to AI. So through education, for example. So if you want to know more, there are a lot of links our website. If you're interested in having a chapter in our city, you can also get in touch with us. If you want to donate to this cause, to this organization, because we are all volunteers, you can also get in touch with us. And on top of that, as I mentioned, there is the education piece. So in our social media, we have a lot of resources around AI, data science, machine learning, free tickets for events. And now, very soon, next month, we'll be partnering with a data science school to provide scholarship for the community. So before IBM, I was working in different companies. And as a data scientist, depending on the company that you work for, you are going to have different roles. So data science, even though they are the same role, the same title, the responsibilities that you have is going to change. So I want to talk a little bit about that using my experience as a way to demonstrate that. So the data science career, data science, we use this word as a very generic word, right? So not everybody knows exactly what a data scientist does. Not every company knows what a data science is. So I really like this cartoon where, they show what my boss thinks data science is. It's like you are making a lot of money and that's what you do. And your customers, they think that data science is kind of like you are like you're doing magic. They have no idea what you're doing. It's kind of like magic. And then the soft engineers, they think that the data scientist has this box with a lot of models, math, machine learning, and then you do some tricks and things over there, and then you have this beautiful result. But data science is much more than that, right? So you as a data scientist, you are going to work with different teams and in different things. And you also need to know different techniques. For example, you need to know statistics, machine learning. You need to know a little bit about infrastructure and software. You need to know how to access data sources, how to combine data sources, and so on. So it's a combination of different skills, different people. So that's what I think data science is. And in summary, data scientists, they are very adaptable and very flexible professionals. And you're going to see this as I go through all the companies and responsibilities that I had throughout my career. So what is the role of a data scientist? It depends on the company, right? So like each company has a different role. So let's go through this first company, because before becoming a data scientist, I was working with research. So I was in academia doing research, writing articles, writing materials, and working with air pollution data and how the air pollution affect people's health. So it was very like traditional research. And then I moved to the industry to work as a data scientist. So the first company, it was called Alpine Data. And Alpine Data was a software company where we had this platform used for big data. Back in the days, big data was a hot topic, like a buzzword. So we had this software which was kind of like a blank canvas. And one advantage here, or like our focus, was to make data science easy for anyone to use. So you didn't have to know how to program, for example, to use this tool, right? So the only thing that you needed is to combine operators. So like in this example, you had a data source, so you had a Hive table, and then you connect some kind of like execution, and then you do some kind of like random sampling, and then you divide your data into training and task sets, and then you apply a logistic regression, and then you have the raw curve. So behind the scenes, there is a lot of like programming, but like you as a user, you didn't have to know how to program. And it was a very interesting company, very different from other roles. And in the company, in terms of like numbers, and the reason why I share the numbers is just for you to get a sense of like the ratio between the total number of employees, the number of engineers, and then the number of data scientists, because that's also changes depending on the company that you work for. So in this company, for example, they had 40 employees, and then 10 engineers and 5 data scientists. So in my opinion, was a very, very good ratio. And me as a data scientist, what was my key responsibility? So first of all, we were working as a consultant. So if a company buys our software, we data scientists would work with them. So we would work on the data science project with them using our software. So we would be working in a specific project with a specific company, but using our Alpine software. Another interesting point was, because it was a software, right? The software comes with documentation. So we as a data scientists, we were writing the majority of the documentation that would come with the software. So we were writing documentation around how to use the software, how to do a logistic regression using the software. What is a logistic regression? So we would also go through the logistic regression, a little bit of math, but how to use the software or how to use the logistic regression within the software, and then give an example. So a lot of documentation. And then another piece, the third piece, was around training customers. So if a customer buys the software, we would go to the company and show them how to use the software. So we would train them on how to use the Alpine software. And because we were working with clients pretty much every day, we would come back to the office and sit with engineers and the product team, and we would provide feedback on the product. We would also come with requests from the customers around new features. So we would work on the prioritization, which features should come in the next release. So those were the 4 main roles that we had as a data scientist. And even though I show some tools like Spark, Scala, and then Pig, these were mainly the tools mainly used by engineers, because we as a data scientist, we were using our software, and the goal of the software was to not have to program or to not write any line of code. So this particular role, I was writing like very, very, very little code. And you can think like, oh, but are you a data scientist without doing any coding? Yeah, you are, right? So in this particular role, you can see that I was not doing coding, but I was doing a lot of other things. Then I shift companies. I changed companies. I went from a software company to a company doing advertising. And the reason why I made this move was because I was interested in learning more about the whole advertisement ecosystem. I was fascinated when I would go to a website and see the advertising running. And then every time I would refresh that browser, a new advertisement would show up. And I would never understand why that was happening. And then there was the other thing, that some ads would follow you throughout the browser, or like if you open another browser, the same thing that you were looking before shows up in your page. So I was very curious about this industry. So I went to this other company called ShareThrough, and the company was a native advertising company. So they had a software for publishers, for developers, and for advertisers. So just to give you an example, what a native advertising is it's kind of like what Twitter and Facebook they have, and where they have something from your friends, and then an ad. So you have like tweet, and an ad. So it has the same look and feel as your page. So kind of like you don't notice that the ad is there, but they are there, and it has the same look and feel as the page. And that company was very interesting because they were generating tons and tons of data every day, every minute. So, and it was bigger than the previous company. So they had around 150 employees with 20 engineers, but only one data scientist. I was the only data scientist in the company. And it was very interesting because when I got hired, they told me, we have tons of data. We are collecting data all the time. And I'm like, oh, cool. This is fun. I will have a lot of things to do. It's kind of like, playing this playground of data. But then when I got there, the first thing was to access the data. How can I access the data that they promised me? And then I realized that the data was in a place and in a format that I could not use at all. So for 6 months, I was working with engineers to create this infrastructure, to create this data pipeline. So then I could use the data to do something. So 6 months working with engineers to create this infrastructure. Once I had this infrastructure, then I was able to create models. So I worked with some optimization problems. I put models in production all by myself. It was pretty hard to be the only one because I had to make decisions. I didn't have anyone to brainstorm with, and if I had any questions, there was no one to ask. And then once I put my models into production, another piece of a thing or responsibilities that I did was around experimental design. So understanding how my model was behaving in real time, and then changing models and just analyzing the metrics. And then the fourth piece again is around education. So because my team, the engineers, they had no idea what a data scientist does and what I was doing. So I had to educate them to understand or to know my workflow and the way or the work that I was doing. So there was the education of like my work to the engineers, and also like to the stakeholders, to my manager, to the CTO. They would have to understand what I do. So I would have lunch and learns explaining a little bit of my work. And then the other piece of the education was I wanted them to understand what I was doing, what kind of techniques I was using. So we would sit together and watch lectures on statistics, and then I would go to the whiteboard and explain the things that were being taught in this online class. And this company, we were using Spark, and I was using R. I was using Python. I was using SQL. I was using then RStudio, Jupyter, and Databricks as the tools. So I was using a lot of languages and different tools, very different from the previous company. So then I moved to something totally different. So every time I think about a new opportunity or a new job, I think about a domain or something that I've never done before, because it kind of like it challenges me to understand what the company is doing and to think about the problems that the company is facing. So I never worked in the financial industry. I had no idea how things work. So that was a very interesting problem and domain for me. In this particular company, they had also like a very interesting business problem where they were or their mission was to provide credit card to international students. It was one of their focus was to provide credit card to international students. And me as an international student that I was in the past, we know how hard it is to get a credit card and build your credit history in the US. So that was the next company, and that company was very small. They had only 35 employees, but then see the ratio, they had 7 engineers and then 4 data scientists. Very different from the previous company where they only had 1 data scientist. So this company was very, very, very data driven. Everything was based on data. They were using AI and data science to make decisions. And again, this one, we were also like responsible for the infrastructure. We as a data scientist, we were creating the whole data infrastructure. And so we had a lot of data come in from different providers, from different companies and 30 parties. And we had to first think about the infrastructure, how we are going to store all the data that we are receiving. Can we have a standard way of like storing this data? So first was to create this infrastructure. Then the second piece was to create dashboards. And the dashboards were used by the CEO every morning. The first thing the CEO would do was to open the laptop and see the numbers, how the company was doing. So we had this beautiful dashboard so they could look at. Also like dashboards for the call center. So if a user had any problems with the credit card, they would call the call center and ask questions and ask anything about your credit card or balance or anything, or like application. And then they would have this dashboard that was also created by us. And then the third piece was, because we were using R from the very end-to-end, from the infrastructure to the models, a lot of things that we were doing were we were repeating a lot of like commands or functions. So we had also like our package that we use internally by all the data scientists. So we also created our packages. And then the fourth piece was around the models, different models running in production. And an interesting thing is that this company was R based. Everything was done in R, from the infrastructure to the dashboards to the models. We were using R in every little aspect or in every little piece of the data science life cycle. So we were using RStudio, our Shiny, our Apache, the library data table. And then I moved to another organization, which is IBM, where I'm still there, where I joined IBM to this particular role working on open source data and AI technology. So the organization that I am in is called CODE, which is the Center for Open Source Data and AI Technologies. So we focus on open source and AI, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the projects that we do over there. But then if you look to the other companies, they were like 30, 40, 100 employees. And IBM, they have more than 300,000 employees. It was a big jump. I have no idea how many engineers there are at IBM. I have no idea how many data scientists. And the responsibilities in my case, we had a bunch of responsibilities. And my team in particular, like we use three main tools, which is Python, Docker, and R. R is kind of like myself using R, but like the team they are heavily invested in Python. And at IBM, I was not hired as a data scientist. I had this very long title, which was Senior Open Source Developer, Deep Learning, Machine Learning, AI Developer, and Advocate. And the responsibilities, there were several. I just listed some of them here in this slide, so you can get you can understand some of the responsibilities. It was very different from all the other roles. This one was very specific in open source. So responsibility, so write great code in key open source communities. Democratize AI by building tools and creating open source projects. Gain eminence in the community by socializing your work and speaking at events. Working with product manager and product teams. Guide and mentor clients, developers to become self-sufficient on open source, mentor others, read the comments on code, fix bugs, create test cases, and write documentation. So different from the other roles, and focus on open source and AI. And then 6 months later, I moved to a different role, which is the machine learning manager. So it's very interesting to see how things progressed. So until then, I was what we call an individual contributor, where you are contributing as one person, right? You have the team, but you have your work. As a manager, you depending, or your work is measured pretty much on the work that your team does. And the main change that I feel as a manager, the main one that is most noticeable is the calendar. Where before I had very little meetings, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 meetings a week. Nowadays, my calendar is like back-to-back meetings from early in the morning to the afternoon, and it's like non-stop. And the responsibilities, it's around thinking about the strategy, thinking about new projects, creating roadmap, creating the vision of the team, the mission of the team, talking to different teams to see if there is any collaboration that we can do, think about the sprint planning, the retrospective, all the one-on-ones that you have with your teammates or if your reports. And in my case, that I still do a lot is like work with the community, speak at events. So it's a very, I would say, fast-paced role. And right now we have the machine learning team, which is the team that I manage, that we have 10 open source developers, which is a mix of like data scientists and soft engineers, and they come from different backgrounds. So there are some like myself, that my background is in statistics, and then you have people with math degrees, engineering, computer science, and finance. So there is a good, diverse, and good collaboration within this team. And in this organization, we build tools to make AI accessible and available to everybody. So we both create projects, open source projects that we create inside IBM, and we make it available to everybody. And we also contribute and collaborate to external open source projects that were not created by us, but we contribute. So there are several projects here that we created, like Data Asset Exchange, Model Asset Exchange, and then all the trustworthy AI umbrella. And there are projects that we contribute to like Apache Spark, Apache Arrow, Pandas, scikit-learn, Jupyter, Kubeflow, etc. Some of the projects that my team works on, there are two main projects, which is one is the model asset exchange and the other one is the data asset exchange. I don't think I'll have time to go through very detailed in each project, but since my slides are available, if you are curious to know more, you can always check the slides and try yourself and use the projects. So the first project is the model asset exchange, which is a place for developers and data scientists and pretty much anyone to find and use free and open source deep learning models. So we have more than 30 plus open source deep learning models available for you, and different domains as well. So if you are looking for models there that are like vision, or you have images as input, we have models for that. If you are looking for more like text, there are models for that. If you are looking for video, there are models for that. And as I mentioned, everything is open and open source, so you can always look at the code. Another project that is the one that we've been working more this year is the data asset exchange, which comes together with the other project, even though they are two different projects. The data asset exchange is a place where you can find data sets, and 85% of the data sets in this project come from IBM research, and they are published under data-friendly licenses, which means that you can use these data sets in the enterprise without any issue. And one of my favorite things is all the data sets, they come with notebooks, which guides you through on how to use this data, how to ingest the data, how to clean this data, how to explore the data, and how to do modeling using this data, all in Python notebooks. And here's an example of like one of the data sets, and you have the data set metadata, you can preview the data. You have data sets, glossary, which is like a dictionary, and all the notebooks. Some of the important skills that I think that are important, some of the skills that I think is important for a data scientist, we all know the tech one, like that you need to know statistics, machine learning, programming, and etc. But one thing that not everybody talks about is the other part, which is around communication. You need to know how to communicate your results to the stakeholders, to people in your team, to your manager, to the maybe manager of your manager. You have to be curious. You have to have the curiosity to keep asking why. It's not because your manager or your boss asked you to do. Why are you doing this? And then the flexibility to change if you need to work with in different domains with different problems and use cases. And then the critical thinking is another one, which goes together with curiosity. And then ethics, which again, I don't think we touch on this enough, which is so important. And another piece which is very important is be yourself, because what you are going to bring to the table is going to be different from other people. So that's what the beauty of the data science team and the diversity in the data science team. And data science is a teamwork. You don't need to know everything, because hopefully you have a team supporting you. So it's not going to be, usually it's not going to be only you or only you doing your work by yourself. Usually you have a team. Even if it's not data scientists with you, it's going to be engineers, data engineers, product managers. So individuals with different skill sets, backgrounds, views, ideas, where they all support each other in this data science process. So thank you very much. Slides and materials are in this URL. Just remember to start our GitHub repo so you can see in your feed all the materials that we have over there.